Welcome back to the Tailgate. My name is Michael Quattromani, and I am very happy to have you here. If you enjoy listening to what I say, then make sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss an upload. And also make sure to check out the Spotify if you get a chance. Helps me out greatly. And subscribe to my other podcast, 4-on-1. We actually came out with some pretty big news a few days ago, if you didn't hear it already. We're going to have a new member on the 4-on-1 podcast. I don't want to get too off on a tangent, but if you want to go check it out, it's probably worth your time. So I'll leave a link down below to our channel. And like always, leave a like, DM me, text me any questions or topics you want me to cover in upcoming podcasts, and I'll make sure to do so. So today, as I'm recording this, we are about 3 hours away from kickoff of the first game of the 2020 NFL season. I'm hyped. Obviously, I think everybody should be hyped given how the year has gone so far. It's exciting. It's really exciting to get back, to NFL, retain just some sort of sanity in this year. But look, I'm going to give my top 10 teams for the upcoming season. This is basically just like my power rankings. This is just what teams I think are going to do best in 2020. This isn't necessarily, the teams I'm ranking to have the best chance to win a Super Bowl, because that's a very different list. Not too much different, obviously, but it's ranking-wise a little bit different. But best teams, I think, for the regular season alone, here's my top 10 list. I'm going to go from 10 to 1. So at number 10, I have the New England Patriots. It may be a little high for some people, but for others, it may actually be a little low, because some people have the Patriots as high as, I've seen 5 or 4 on some lists, and as low as, a 3-13 record projection. I think the New England Patriots are the biggest wild card team in the NFL. They're the biggest team where you look at this team, you look at the depth chart, you look at the roster, training camp news, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. Because I don't either. I mean, what is Cam Newton? You know what I mean? Is the injury still there? Is he still an MVP caliber quarterback? I mean, what is he going to bring to the table? What is he going to bring to this offense? I mean, this, again, it's a different offense from what they ran last year. But here's the thing that kind of, sets me off a little bit. It's the change from Brady to Newton is, crazy, and they're never going to be able to get used to it. It's not. Because, look, one's a mobile quarterback, one's a pocket passer. But if you want to go from the New England offense as a whole, right, Bill Belichick's offense, it changes from year to year. I mean, last year we saw more of a run-heavy approach. In years past, we've seen just pass the ball. We've seen a plethora of tight ends, mostly just named Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez too. But those two guys, even Ben Watson early in his career, would dominate and be a focal point for Tom Brady, right? And what we've seen last season, and when Gronk missed games and long amounts of time, we've seen them switch to more wide receiver heavy. And then last year they didn't have a whole lot of wide receivers, so they went more to a running back heavy. And then we've seen years where they have awesome running backs, and then years where they're actually kind of thin. My point is, we've seen offensive lines. Those vary every year, whether we're going to have a really good one or a really bad one. They vary every single year. And the offense and the game plan and the schemes, they change every year. So I don't like the whole scapegoat of, Newton's coming in, the offense is going to completely change. Because if you look at who they've added for Cam Newton, or because of Cam Newton, it's been no one. Since Cam Newton came in here, they didn't sign someone and you're like, oh, they probably did that for Newton. No, they didn't actually sign anybody on the offense. If anything, they let Sanu go. And I think that's more because of his ankle injury more than his, relationship with Newton. Because if you look at the Instagram posts, Sanu and Newton were posting every day about workouts. So if anything, that was a positive relationship that they had. I think it reflects more on him, his health, and his, status as a wide receiver skill-wise, rather than his relationship or how well he fits in with Cam Newton. So, look, off of that, the Patriots did lose 9 of their 22 starters last year. That's a lot. But I think you need to remember that, again, the Patriots have new personnel and new people coming in and year out. People that you're like, why did they let them go? And then people where you're like, okay, I've never heard of this guy before. Well, let's see what he's got. Letting go of Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, even a guy like Jabal Sheard, Chandler Jones, these, pass rushing. Jones actually had I think it was the most sacks or second most sacks in the NFL last year. These are head scratchers, but they let him go, and then they're still okay. And look, the Patriots let go of a lot of guys: Elandon Roberts, Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins. I mean, Danny Shelton opted out. Dante Hightower opted out. Chung opted out. A lot of big name guys, but these are replaceable guys. Kyle Van Noy isn't like a diamond in the rough, or Landon Roberts isn't, you're never going to find another Jamie Collins. Like, these guys are replaceable. And I don't think that it's too far-fetched to think that Anthony Jennings and Josh Uche can make day one impacts like a Kyle Van Noy. And he actually had to use a good, solid season to get adjusted to the game plan and to really, be an effective piece on this team. So I don't think it's too out of the question to think that, some of these rookies could have impacts day one. I think that it's the Belichick system that performed well, not necessarily the players. And look, am I being a little bit naive? Yeah, Kyle Van Noy led the league and led the team in tackles last year, and that's that's some skill. I'm not going to argue that it's not, but I think that you can find these players. It's not like you're losing Bobby Wagner, where that's skill. Put him in whatever system, he's going to be good. I mean, who knows what Kyle Van Noy. We saw Jamie Collins be awful in Cleveland, but he came back to the Patriots, and he was literally a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for the first 6 weeks of the season. So we'll see what happens. They also went out, like I said before, they drafted positions of need. They went out and drafted Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings. They got Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi for the tight end position. They got Michael Ochenwu, who was supposed to be one of the steals of the draft in the 6th round, offensive guard in Michigan. They're drafting positions of need to add depth or fix up holes that they lost in free agency or to opting out. I think that Cam Newton looks good right now, and he looks like a leader. He was assigned a captain from Bill Belichick, and we all know. All right, this isn't anything new. Bill Belichick doesn't give out praise. That's not what he's known for. He doesn't praise people. He praised Cam Newton for saying that he's the first one in, last one out type of guy. That's his mentality. He's a dog. He's an absolute beast right now. He just looks good. I mean, obviously the Patriots don't let anybody report on anything in training camp, but the reports that we have gotten have been pretty much all positive from Newton. I mean, yeah, has he had off days? Yes, but so has every player ever. Cam Newton has looked good. He's looked like a leader. He's building a relationship with Edelman. I'm hoping N'Keal Harry too. Haven't seen too much about that, but we'll see what happens. I think that this year, more than ever, we're going to see a potent run game with Sony Michel, James White, Damian Harris, who is supposedly having an outstanding camp right now. The Pats ranked 18th in total rushing yards last year. That's bottom half of the league. That's not good. That's not like the Patriots. They usually, not saying always, because I'd be contradicting myself from what I said before, but they usually have a good run game. So I think that this year, more than ever, they're going to have a good run game. I think Sony Michel's going to get back because, if you remember, there was a revolving door last year with wide receivers and with offensive linemen. I mean, Isaiah Wynn was out once in a while. Marcus Cannon was out here and there. David Andrews missed the entire season. Luckily, he's back. Really hyped about that. But look, I think this year, if everyone, and it's a big if, I know, but if people can remain healthy, the offensive line, because they are very slim at that position, but if people can remain healthy there, then I think that the offensive game as a whole can flourish, and I think the addition of Cam Newton actually helps it a lot and adds another dimension to this offense. We could see a comeback from last season in the run game. I'm not going to beat around the bush, though. The receivers are questionable. But I would be nervous if Brady was the quarterback. I'd be nervous, if you were relying on a pocket passer. Cam Newton is your quarterback. Brady's extremely one-dimensional, as we know. He just passes the ball from the pocket. Cam Newton, he can run it. He can scramble. He can pass from in or outside of the pocket. The surrounding weapons aren't going to be as important this year than it was last year coming down the stretch. I'm not saying it's not going to be important, because then, obviously, it is important. But I think that if N'Keal Harry takes a step up from last year and he lives up to his first-round hype, first-round talent, then in Julian Edelman, it's a big if. But if he can stay healthy for 13 or 14 games, I'm not even saying all 16, 13 or 14 games, and he can put up 1,000 yards, I think that we're going to see a successful offense this year. probably more successful than last year, because you have to remember, Patriots have the hardest schedule in the NFL this year. They had the easiest one last year. So you're automatically set at a disadvantage. Can you come back from that? Can we just remember how good Cam Newton was? Because he is really just not getting any praise at all. He won MVP in 2015 over prime Tom Brady, prime Aaron Rodgers, prime Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning was still in the league at that point. Brady was second in votes. Cam Newton was better than those four guys who are all future Hall of Famers. I would say that Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning are all going to be top 5, if not top 10 all time. He did it with no wide receivers. He had none. I cannot name you one wide receiver that he had during his 2015 MVP run. He had an above-average running back. I bet you can't even name him because I had to look it up. Jonathan Stewart. They did it with an above-average running back in Greg Olsen. And he won MVP with that. Patriots are going to surprise some people this year, so don't be surprised if halfway through the season they are higher up on this list than number 10. That was a very long, I think I'm sitting at like 8 minutes right now for, time of of how long it took me to talk about the Patriots, but look, I'm going to kind of speed through the rest of these. At number 9, I have the Buffalo Bills. It would be very easy for me to switch Buffalo with New England. But the only reason I put Buffalo higher is because we know what Buffalo is. We know that, Josh Allen is an inconsistent quarterback. We know that, Buffalo is a very tough defense. They have pretty good coaching, and they have a very slept on running back core with Devin Singletary, and now you have rookie running back Zach Moss. The addition of Stephon Diggs solves the biggest problem on this team, getting that outside, number 1 receiver, which John Brown just didn't live up to. And the only problem is that we don't know what Josh Allen is. I mean, we don't know. We know he's inconsistent, but we don't know, he throws it long, but can he accurately throw it long? Is he, he threw for only like 58% completion rate last year. That was the bottom of the NFL. Can he do better than that? There's a lot of question marks around him. The Bills were 2-4 versus teams above 500 last year, and they have the 5th hardest schedule in the NFL this season. So they're gonna see a lot of teams above 500 this year, and we'll just have to see how they can face off against them. The Bills' defense and their run game is just enough for me to put them at number 9. Look, they could be higher if we see Josh Allen, step up from how he played last season, but right now I'm gonna put him at 9. Number 8, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Might be a little surprise for you guys. It is physically impossible for this team to be as injured as they were last year. It's impossible. It is not it's not possible. Okay? They still managed to go 9-7. Now they have the 8th easiest schedule. Everyone's healthy, and Carson Wentz finally has people to throw the ball to, not named Greg Ward and JJ Arcega-Whiteside as their number 1 and number 2 receivers. Honestly, I don't have any other reasoning except for their injuries on why they're going to be number 8. The Eagles last season were literally the team that could have been, if they were healthy. And now we are going to have the opportunity to see why. The Eagles acquired Darius Slay, who is probably a top 5 cornerback in the league, over the offseason, and fixed one of their biggest problems last season, which was their secondary. The D-line is still nasty and is going to give other teams trouble, and they're going to get to the quarterback, especially in a division with Dak Prescott, which you're going to have to do against that tough offensive line. They also get 4 free wins against the Giants and Washington in their own division. I've got the Eagles at 8. Number 7, we have the Tennessee Titans. Again, I think that they're a little higher up than I would have maybe predicted a few months ago, but this team really doesn't have too many problems. I was looking at the depth chart. I was looking at, the acquisitions they made over the offseason, who they gained, who they lost, and they didn't lose too many guys, and they actually gained a few people that are going to make immediate impacts on their team. Mike Vrabel is quickly emerging as one of the best coaches in the league. I said it because someone has to. He is one of the best best defensive-minded coaches that we've seen in a while. He can get guys ready for games, any game plan. They throw out very versatile schemes. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I think he's a fantastic coach, and he outcoached Bill Belichick last year in the wild card. That's enough for me to think that he's top of the NFL. Top, 4 or 5. I'm not saying he's the number one coach in the NFL, and that's still Belichick. But top 4 or 5 coaches, Mike Vrabel should definitely be in that conversation. Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is the best pure running back in the NFL. Take out fantasy points, take out receiving. I'm talking about you hand it off to him. Who has the best chance to, give you 5 or 6 yards? Derrick Henry is my guy. He was the best running back when facing a loaded box, which means 7 or more guys in the front 7, in the linebacker area where you run the ball. He had the best percentages there. A.J. Brown has potential to be a great receiver. He flashed a lot of times, especially at the end of the season last year. Didn't have too much of an opportunity to do it in the playoffs because, Tennessee turned to more of a run-heavy scheme, which they should have. They have, like I said, a fantastic running back. But I think we're going to see A.J. Brown perform really well. I think he's had more time to develop a relationship with Ryan Tannehill. And I think we're going to see A.J. Brown maybe eclipse 1,000 yards this year. This defense, especially the front 7, looks dominant and even better with the addition of Jadeveon Clowney. They lost Jarrell Casey, which is a big loss, but they recouped in Jadeveon Clowney, and I think they would have been even fine without Jarrell Casey. Tannehill seems like the perfect game manager this team needs. Last year, we saw New England surprise the NFL and be the top defense, breaking records along the way. I don't think that Tennessee is going to break records per se, but my hot take is that Tennessee will be the number 1 overall defense at the end of the season. They have a fantastic secondary. They can stop teams in the 3 and out very easily. They can wear you down with Derrick Henry. I got Titans at 7. Number 6, I got the Seattle Seahawks. If you watched our power rankings video on the 4-1, you know that I predicted Seattle to be a Super Bowl contender. And I'm going to stand to that. And you may be questioning or scratching your head saying, Michael, you have them at 6. Well, I'm sticking to that. But this team tends to get better as the season goes on. And that's why they're opening at 6 for me. This defense was abysmal last year, but they were bottom 10 in the NFL. But they went out and got Quinton Dunbar and traded for the best safety in the NFL, Jamal Adams. I feel a lot better about this secondary, especially surrounding Bobby Wagner. But that D-line is still a worry for me. I'm not going to, beat around the bush again. I'm not much less worried about the O-line either, as we saw numerous times last season where the pocket would collapse and Russell Wilson would have to work his magic and roll out of the pocket, right? But with that being said, this team has a top 3 wide receiver tandem in the NFL, or emerging top 3 wide receiver tandem, with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and their depth at tight end is nuts. Greg Olsen they acquired over the offseason, Will Dissly's healthy again, and they got Jacob Hollister, who's a great red zone threat. The secondary is going to be lethal, and there's no way that they are going to be as injured as they were last year. They were so injured, they had to go out and sign Marshawn Lynch. That should just tell you enough how injury-riddled this team was. They also lost a lot of offensive linemen, which hurt them in the rankings. Wilson is going to show us all once again why he should be in the consideration of best quarterback in the league. Seahawks at 6. Don't be surprised if they get put higher than that. Number 5, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Best offense in the NFL. Plain and simple. Best offense in the NFL. They're going to put up the most yards this year. Probably put up the most points too. Tom Brady's going to show at 43 why he can still do it. There's not much more I can say. Brady finishes the number 12 ranked quarterback last season with all the tension and revolving door that was the wide receiver position. Now he walks into the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL, the deepest running back core in the NFL, and his favorite target ever in Rob Gronkowski. The only question mark on this team is the secondary, especially against division teams like the Saints and Falcons, who have very explosive pass attacks. But they have a top 5 run defense, and if they can be a bend but don't break offensive line like we've seen in New England over the years, well, that's good enough for Brady to be able to make plays. They did spend a first rounder on Tristan Wirfs to help out the offensive line, and I think that the stability of Tom Brady is going to automatically help out this offensive line. There's a lot to like about Tampa Bay. I've got them at 5. Number 4, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. It's hard to leave this team outside of the top 5, especially given this defense and this run game. I really wanted to because I'm very low on San Francisco this year, but I couldn't not. I will say I think it will be hard for this team to replicate the defensive season that they had last year, but they're just too dominant, to be a team that won't finish as a top 7 defense nonetheless. Deebo Samuel's injury is something to monitor, and the loss of Emmanuel Sanders greatly hurts an already depleted wide receiver core. But remember, George Kittle is a very dominant force, and he's probably the best tight end in the NFL. I think that when it comes to the tight end position, and you account, run blocking, you account running, you account like running routes, catching the ball, anything a tight end should do, I think George Kittle's the best one. If you want to go by yards and catches and touchdowns, then yeah, Kelsey's your guy. But I think Kelsey's just a glorified receiver. So I think George Kittle's the best tight end in the NFL. They also brought in Jordan Reed, who people forget was a force in the NFL. He just has like 800 concussions. But if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a great tight end tandem in the NFL. They also drafted Brandon Ayuk in the first round. So, look, I don't know too much about the guy, but he's a first-round wide receiver. He's probably going to already slide into that number 3 and number 2, position behind Deebo Samuel. So he's going to get a lot of looks early, especially if Samuel misses time at the beginning of the season. If he can build a little relationship with Jimmy Garoppolo, then look, you got a number 1 receiver, you got a solid number 2 receiver, you got the best tight end in the NFL. If Jordan Reed's healthy, you got a solid backup tight end. You got a great running game and a solid defense. This team could be higher than 4. They could be in the Super Bowl again this year. I just think there are too many question marks again for me. Can we start giving Jimmy Garoppolo the respect he deserves, though? He's 21-5 as a starter and made it to the Super Bowl in his first full season. Not a whole lot of quarterbacks can say that they did that, except for Tom Brady. The 49ers defense in this consistent offense is enough for me to give them number 4. I just think that, if the defense can... the question marks I would say, and the reason why I would say that this team was hard for me to put in the top 5, yet hard for me to not put them in the top 5, is kind of because we don't know if this defense is going to be as good as it was last year. We don't know if the depleted wide receiver core is going to hurt them a lot. I mean, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be able to get back from a lost Super Bowl? What about Kyle Shanahan? He's lost 2 Super Bowls now. One as the Falcons offensive coordinator, and now as the 49ers head coach. There are a lot of things that you got to... what about Raheem Mostert? That was kind of a random 200-yard performance he put in the NFC Championship. Is he going to be able to do that again? Who knows? Is the run game going to be able to do that again? They lost Matt Breida, so now they only have Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert. Neither guy is, at the top of any opposing team's game plan on how to stop. So we'll see what happens this year. At number 3, I have the New Orleans Saints. This season is going to favor teams that don't need to figure out a lot. Teams that really didn't make too many offseason acquisitions or lose a whole lot of players, and they still got the same quarterbacks, same coaches. They're basically just going to try to do the same thing from last season, just better. Well, the Saints are at the top of that list. The teams like the Patriots and the Dolphins have very different teams than they did last year and would usually use OTAs and preseason games to figure out, out. But this year, teams are going to be using the first few weeks to figure things out, right? I mean, we got to figure out Cam Newton, the run game, O-line, wide receivers, tight end position, defense as a whole. Those are all things that both the Dolphins and Patriots have to figure out. The Saints brought back pretty much every single player from last year, and actually got better by adding Emmanuel Sanders to fix the biggest hole on their team, which was, having a number 2 receiver behind Michael Thomas. They have a very healthy Alvin Kamara after tearing his MCL early in the season last year, and still duking, playing through it, which I think is nuts. But look, they have Alvin Kamara healthy, a top 5 offense, and have an average pass defense with a great run defense. It's a pretty good formula for a dominant team. Saints are the definition of consistent and are going to make yet another run at the Super Bowl this year. That's one of the easiest things you can pencil in, is like a double-digit win season for the Saints. It's going to happen. Number 2, I have the Baltimore Ravens. The 2-1 should be relatively easy. Lamar Jackson is only getting better, which is a very scary thought for the future of the NFL. This defense took a hit by losing Earl Thomas, but that secondary is still going to be lethal. They added Calais Campbell to that front 7, which puts their defense in the top 5 in the NFL if it wasn't already there. Adding J.K. Dobbins makes that run game even better, and having the easiest schedule in the league gives this team a legit chance to go 16-0. I said it. I mean, they have the easiest schedule. I don't think that it's out of the question for really any dominant team to go 16-0, but they have the easiest schedule in the NFL. I've got the Ravens at 2. I don't think they're going to go 16-0, but because I think that there's no way that Lamar plays as good as he did last year, but I could definitely see a 13-3, 14-2 season out of this Ravens team. Number one, you all guessed it, the New York. No, obviously Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champs, best quarterback in the league, great defense, solid O line, explosive weapons, good coach, and they spent a first rounder on a running back. Their biggest thing. It's hard to bet against a team it's hard to bet against this team to not pick up from where they were last year. Chiefs at 1. Should be pretty easy. Now, that's going to sum my list, but I got the 2-minute warning. So I'm just going to go down my list one more time. Not going to give you really any reasoning behind it, but I'm just going to give you my list. So at number 10, we have the New England Patriots. 9, we have the Buffalo Bills. 8, Philadelphia Eagles. 7, Tennessee Titans. 6, Seattle Seahawks. 5, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 4, San Francisco 49ers. 3, New Orleans Saints. 2, Baltimore Ravens, and 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's going to round out my list. I think that is going to be it for this edition of The Tailgate. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening to this episode, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a good one. I think I was born inside a cabana with diamonds and gold on top of the phantom.